Hi guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Quantifiably Bitchy. I am your host Raquella, and this month we are going to be discussing season 1, episode 7 of Hannibal Sorbet. So happy to have you guys back, as always. And as always, I can't believe we're on episode 7. Last month we did Chilton, and it was so much fun. So I'm really excited because we're finally kind of getting into the main story of it all with the Ripper and Gideon and things like that. So super excited to talk about that with you guys today. Just some quick housekeeping items. Make sure you follow me everywhere. TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Instagram. I recently made an Instagram. I'm Quantifiably Bitchy everywhere without that last I in bitchy. So please feel free to follow me. I post stupid memes. You can talk to me about the show. I post clips from the podcast. I should post more clips from the podcast, but I'm working on it. Okay, so keep that in mind. So yeah, follow me everywhere. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Season 1, episode 7, Sorbet. Yeah, so the opening shot here, what are we working with? It's Will in his little FBI school pit, his little fishbowl. He is reviewing Ripper cases with the students at Quantico with the FBI. Shout out to Essex. The Ripper has killed in Annapolis, Essex, and Baltimore. If you're from Maryland, you know that Essex is kind of like an inside joke. So it's like kind of a niche reference here, but it makes me laugh. It's where our like waste plant is, and it's like kind of like white trash. So it's just like a really funny, like random city to mention, but shout out to Essex because it never gets shouted out. So I love that for us. So yeah, Will is reviewing all of the Ripper's victims, and they're just trying to kind of get to the bottom of this whole who is the Chesapeake Ripper thing. And you know they're desperate when they are recruiting students. And Will says, you know, the Ripper doesn't see his victims as prey nor people. He sees them as pigs, which is a great little reference when we kind of get into the Mason Verger stuff later. But I do think it's very telling of how Hannibal is. Prey, I think, would almost imply that you're equals because there is kind of a hunt going on. Pigs, you know, they're just being taken out to slaughter. So it's even less than animal. It's, you know, pig, which I think is how Hannibal sees it and how he sees people until I guess he meets Will. Will with the wound man in the background of his slides, you know, he has made the connection, the FBI has made the connection to this piece of art, not knowing that Miriam Lass also kind of made the connection to last minute. And we find out that they are trying to find the Ripper because, you know, they found Miriam Lass's arm last episode. And that is why they're kind of reopening this case. They have this arm, not reopening it, but like bringing it back to the forefront. They have this arm. Now they're like, is she alive? If not, we need to find her body. And Will correctly establishes that the reason we were able to find her arm is because he wanted us to. And then cut to the inside of this opera singer's throat. And then we cut to the opera singer's, the inside of her throat, which I'm assuming they had to get with like an endoscopic camera, which is a crazy shot, by the way. Personally, hate it. Throats freak me out. It is gorgeous. It is daring. And then we get this shot of Hannibal at the opera. Her lips are red. Everything else is gold. The ribbons behind her in this museum, I think, are really... I love this shot because in like old plays, or they still even do this, but like I'm thinking like, you know, Shakespeare... in order to portray like blood spurting from somebody, like in a kill scene, they might do it with ribbons, and they might have kind of like a special effect where like these like ribbons explode out of the character and out of the actor, and it looks like blood, and it's like almost like confetti ribbons. And that's what this shot reminds me of. It's not inherently brutal or violent or gory, but there is this kind of like just the ribbons flowing out of her like guts. It's beautiful. What can I say? We get a lot of funky shots this episode. We get the shot with going into Hannibal's ear, and then he opens his eyes and he is crying, which is obviously, it teaches us a lot about Hannibal. You know, like he doesn't cry about regular people, but he is crying to this beautiful operatic music, and it's like one of the few and only things to make him cry ever. And to also add, people think that he's a psychopath, but we see him throughout this episode kind of feeling every emotion, and you know, sadness and crying at the face of beauty is definitely an emotion, and he is doing that here. I also really like how this opera singer, the dress kind of puddles at her feet. It reminds me of blood. It's just very aesthetically pleasing. And then we learn that Franklin and Tobias are here. I fucking hate Franklin. I know you're not supposed to like him, but he is so irritating, and you can just already tell that he's going to like be annoying, get in the way, just like the worst. Oh, the tears in Hannibal's eyes, it's so beautiful. He can... Mads does such good acting with his face. It's all very subtle, but it is really captivating, and he does a lot with a little. Hannibal is the first person to stand up and give a standing ovation to the singer. Franklin follows suit. And then we cut to Hannibal at the reception, which I like this scene because it shows that he is established in society. He has people coming up to him asking if he's going to have a dinner party soon, and they're like these snobby rich people. But I do think that it proves that he has a place in society. People know him, they respect him, they want to come to his house for his dinner parties. He is not your typical serial killer. He fools everybody. The feast is life. You put it in the belly and then you live. That's such a great Hannibal line. I do think that it boils down to him thinking that like this is art, and he is, you know, adding these people into food and giving them to his friends and acquaintances, and there is this kind of like, he feels it's necessary, it's nourishing. He feels what he's doing is important, and I think that is important to understand in Hannibal's dynamic and like kind of how he sees the world. And then Franklin comes and is like, hi, crazy to see you here. Yeah, crazy, I'm sure. Franklin revealing that he's one of Hannibal's patients, despite Hannibal trying to prevent that from happening. Ugh, you're like, oh, okay, you're gonna die. That's fun. And we meet Tobias, his friend, who already appears more intelligent than Franklin. I do think it's important to note that immediately Hannibal's like, oh, you know what? I will have a dinner party. I met this annoying person. I'm gonna have a dinner party. Why not? This next scene really confused me. Of course, you're gonna hear me say this like throughout the entirety of watching the show, but Jack is walking into the FBI, the morgue specifically, where they like, where the bodies are, but also where you see a lot of the talking moments between Will and the science throuple and things like that. So you hear a phone ringing, and it appears to be coming from the morgue, and Jack opens the door to the morgue, and Miriam's hand is there with the cell phone. Now, you're to assume this is like a hallucination or a dream, but it is not shot that way. It is shot as if it is real. And then you hear ringing in the background, and you realize that Jack is being woken up from a dream, and that it's clearly haunting him. So we have Will, who's kind of going through it with his with his hallucinations, and then we have Jack, who is starting to see things and panic too. And then we get our sweet baby Will again, him and Jack driving to the crime scene in the middle of the night. Jack is his first call. Jack is very codependent upon Will to solve crimes, definitely because there is guilt. Jack thinks it could be the Ripper, and he is super scared that this is going to start a chain reaction of murders again. Because as we know, the Ripper, some serial killers do this, where like they won't kill for a certain period of time, whether they're in jail or in the military. Like there's a number of reasons. With Hannibal, it's like, oh, there's a dinner party hasn't presented itself, so like there hasn't been the need for killing as much, and he's afraid that this cycle is picking up again and that he's going to lose somebody else. And Will is rightly assuring Jack that like you can't let the Ripper get into your head over Miriam, because that was the point. He didn't reveal Miriam for no reason. It was for a reason. It was to play with Jack, and Will is like, you can't let it work. He's right, but Will doesn't listen because nobody in the show listens, so they all have to find out the hard way. Everyone in this group really likes to just like learn their lessons through doing. And Will tends to believe, without seeing him first, this next victim, this crime scene they're going to, is not the Ripper, because it would be obvious. And Jack emphasizes that the reason why it's so important to catch him now is because he's killing again, and he only does it for like certain windows of time. So the window is small and closing. We go to the crime scene, we find Beverly, Brian, and Jimmy are all there. We find out that the victim was operated on and then reoperated on, and then the sutures were ripped open, so it's like kind of violent. Jack is like, who touched the body? And Beverly's like, me, I did, because she is brave and awesome. And Brian Zeller forgets to reveal that and is like, oh yeah, me too, my bad. Brian Zeller is an idiot. We're finding bits of the victim have been ripped off like breadcrumbs. Thanks, Jimmy Price. He just provides us with such inappropriate, wonderful visuals. And I think And I think it's because he is just so used to, well, it's because, you know, Scott Thompson is a comedian and he's funny, but I think it works well with Jimmy because he is around death all the time and dead people, so he doesn't really know how to be tactful. And I think that's a great little character detail. We see the victim in a bathtub full of blood. This is another reference to the Shining bathroom. We get both Shining bathrooms in this series. It's obvious that Fuller is a fan of The Shining. I mean, who is not? It's a horror classic, but we do get a lot of reference shots redone in this, and that's so fun. So the kidney's been removed. They assume that he's doing these things in a car, and Zeller is convinced that it's the Ripper. I love that Jack has to make everybody get out so Will can, you know, play around in the crime scene, lay in it, roll around in it, lick it. No, I'm just kidding. But it is funny that he has to, like, play pretend. And then I love the lighting change when Will goes to, like, go in his head and, like, view the crime. It's just very obvious, Shining bathroom, very obvious that what's reality and what's not, where it's not always obvious when we're watching in those moments, but in this, and with his like going back into the crime scene, it's always very obvious. The lighting changes, and he reopens the door, and the stag is walking into the bathroom. He's following death. He's following his lesson. So it seems like this guy was, you know, removing this man's organs and then he woke up and realized what was going on, and then he had to kill him. Okay, so we find out that this guy was performing surgery, removed this man's kidney, and then he woke up and realized what had happened and then started fighting the murderer. And then he started going into cardiac arrest. And then the organ extractor tries to save him with a cardiac massage, which is end of life saving care. So like if you're in an emergency and they do cardiac arrest, they crack your chest open and they massage your heart essentially. And then the guy dies. Great shot. Jack emerging in the door with the side where all the blood is. Good detail. Will determines that there's no way that this is the Ripper because the murderer tried to save this man's life, and the Ripper doesn't save lives. But Zeller is like, no, it's the Ripper. I love when Zeller and Graham fight because Brian Zeller's always wrong. He's always wrong. But that's why you want Will on your team, because he's looking past those obvious details and into like intention and the emotional element of it, personal details, not just the facts. Literally slams the door in his face. That's hilarious. I love that Will gives an example of being like, no, the Ripper left the tongue of one of his victims in the bookmark of a Bible. This is not the same thing, which is crazy and like so Hannibal. Like he would put someone's tongue in a Bible. Willgraham is so hot. I say it like 10 times an episode, but here's me saying it now. Just that twitchy little fuck. Oh, when he reassures Jack, he's like, you'll catch him eventually. You will. And Jack's like, fuck eventually. I want to catch him now. Oh, this is an interesting line. Will says to Jack, you can't just jack up the law and get underneath it. Interesting for a lot of reasons, right? He literally uses his name as the verb, and Jack's like, why can't I? And I do think it's a really important moment to understand with Jack, because you're like, oh, he's willing to break the rules and break the law and be unethical in order to catch this killer, which is not good police work. But it does kind of give you an insight to where his head is at. Tell me how you see the Ripper, Will. He sees the Ripper as a pitiful thing that should have died at birth, but didn't, and survived in spite of it all. Interesting. Interesting analysis of Hannibal, knowing how they get to know each other later and how he kind of changes his mind. But he says he's going to look normal, but he's not normal. And nobody can tell what he is except for Willgraham, because he's not like the other girls. And then smash cut to Hannibal opening the door to Franklin, his next client. That's such a fun bit of editing. And this shot, it's always, Fuller takes full advantage of Hannibal's psychiatrist chair and just the office and the setup. We get it from both angles, either facing his desk or facing the window. In this shot, Franklin is leaning forward on the edge of his seat, quite literally on the edge of his seat for Hannibal, and Hannibal is more relaxed, leaning back. The chairs are decently close together, but there is this obvious, unbalanced power dynamic between them, and this eagerness from Franklin. And Hannibal's like, do you want to discuss our chance encounter? And Franklin's like, it wasn't exactly chance. No shit. And I do like this line too, because he's like, I didn't just go for you. I'm there because I like that sort of thing. He couldn't even name what it was, right? Opera. He's just like, oh, I like that sort of thing. It's just like really generic. It's obvious he doesn't give a shit. He just wanted to see Hannibal. And Hannibal, of course, clocks that immediately. Franklin's an idiot. And he tried to get Hannibal's attention throughout the whole performance. And Hannibal's like, yeah, I know. I ignored you on purpose because that's rude. Like, he was crying during that performance. He was not about to like fuck with Franklin. This is a really important scene because Franklin is begging Dr. Lecter to be his friend. And Hannibal is like, no, you're my patient. No. It says a lot about Franklin, but it also says a lot about Hannibal, and it's really important for the next scene. So just catalog this away in your mind for like 5 minutes. And Franklin's just like, please be my friend. And Hannibal's like, I cannot be your friend. I am your doctor. It's like the one time he's acting ethical, but like not even really, because it's just like he thinks Franklin is boring. Otherwise, he would jump at the chance to be his friend. Because keep in mind, he is friends with Will. Franklin saying the saddest thing about Michael Jackson dying is that he won't ever get to meet him and be his friend. Filthy self-report for Franklin. No, the saddest thing is that he died, you dumbass. I can't. And then we meet Hannibal's therapist. This is our first Bedelia episode. I'm going to be honest, when I first started this podcast, like when I first started this episode today, I started watching episode 8 because I'm an idiot and I just like thought we were on episode 8 and I was like, have we met Bedelia yet? No, because we're actually on episode 7. So we meet Bedelia, the wonderful Gillian Anderson, playing Hannibal's therapist. She's so hot. My favorite thing about Bedelia, aside from just being Gillian Anderson and like the hottest woman on earth, is that she clocks Hannibal from the beginning. And something that I like to talk about when I talk about Hannibal is how tired of the men the women become throughout the series. There is like a definite separation between them, but Bedelia clocks Hannibal from the minute we meet her, because she's like, one of us has to be honest with each other, Hannibal, and it's not going to be you because you're wearing a people suit. He tries to lie to her and say that he's super honest, and she's like, no. She refers to Hannibal's persona as a very well-tailored person suit, which is a beautiful turn of phrase just because of how well tailored his actual suits are, how put together he is. She says it's meticulously crafted, and, you know, why wouldn't his metaphorical suit be as well made as his real ones? And he asks if she's told anybody about him and his human suit amongst her psychiatric circles, and she's like, no, because she's not stupid. But it's also revealed to us that she is retired and the only patient she has right now is Hannibal. Now, we find out that she retired and he was like, you still have to be my doctor. He didn't take no for an answer, and she still listened to him. Important. Less of a person suit and more of a human veil. Bedelia has some of the best turns of phrases. I know Anderson has been like, I don't understand the lines, I just say them, but she really does have some of the most beautiful dialogue in the series. And then she hits him with this kind of really vulnerable, that must be lonely, Hannibal. And I know she's baiting him a little bit because she wants to know what he says, but I do think she genuinely means it too, because it is very lonely. And he's like, I have friends and opportunities for friends. It's just like, I have opportunities for friends, but I choose not to use them. That's such a great defense tactic of being like, no, it's not that I don't have friends, I'm choosing not to. It's all me. All on me, so I can't feel bad about it. Classic. And then he tries to say, this is where the Franklin conversation comes back to kind of bite him, is he's like, we're friends. And she's like, no. We are friendly. You're my patient. And that's it, babe. We can't be friends. I'm your patient. Why don't you understand that? And the hurt on Hannibal's face is beautiful. You're my patient. You're my colleague, not my friend. And the hurt in Hannibal's eyes is crazy. Hannibal throughout the series, and I want you guys to pay attention when you're watching this, when he is hurt, it is going to be written all over his face. It's not going to be loud, it's going to be there though. And Mads does a really beautiful job at those like micro expressions, but people that say that Hannibal is a psychopath and like doesn't feel emotions is just wrong. You know, I know Mads has spoken on that, but no, he feels emotions, big ones, big angry emotions, and he feels hurt a lot, easily. And it's usually written all over his face. And this is one of those moments. She's like, yeah, I'll pour you a glass of wine at the end of this, but we're not friendly, and I'm kind of scared of you. She's like, I see enough to be scared, but also I like you, because everyone in the show is crazy. I also enjoy that she's like, red or white wine, and he's like, how about pink? It feels like a compromise, but for me, pink wine just feels like there's just a little bit of blood in it, right? Like, imagine a little bit of blood in the glass. I don't know, something about that visual is how I see it. And then keep the Franklin session in mind, the Bedelia session, and now we have Will's session. It's the evening. Will has showed up to Hannibal's door. He's always facing the other way and turns around like really slutty. It's so dramatic. It's crazy that he ever thought he was straight. The way he acts around Hannibal. He is always doing a dramatic turn. Hannibal invites him in. Will's like, oh, you've been drinking before my appointment? Awesome. Drinking with a patient. Yeah, because that's the worst thing this man's ever done. He's like, I have an unconventional psychiatrist of my own. Yeah, Hannibal, but I'm confused at this because did you bring the bottle home with you? Girl, these fucking men. Will's a little fit, his little ugly ass fit. And you can tell that Hannibal was hurt by Bedelia because he's like, am I your psychiatrist or are we just having conversations? Because I was already rejected once today and I cannot be rejected a second time. And Will, his soulmate, says, yes, both. And he's like, then the wine is fine. The way willgraham is sitting in this chair, his crotch is just like, it's the way the chairs are, but it's like this crotch is just like on display. The way he's holding the wine glass, he's just so different than Hannibal. And Hannibal's like, oh, I read the Freddie Lowndes article. There's another victim of the Ripper, because we're assuming that Freddie Lowndes is just posting shit this whole time, even though we don't necessarily see it. And Will's like, nope, it is not him. Hannibal tries to plant the seed in Will's mind that there might be more than one Ripper. Will doesn't go for it. He says, nice try. I don't think so. And Hannibal puts the idea of organ harvesters into Will's brain, that, oh, maybe the Ripper is harvesting these organs, which kinda. So it's interesting that Hannibal puts that idea in Will's head. Then we get a quick flashback. It is in black and white, a nice little tactic that we get when we are meant to know that it is the past, not a hallucination, not a dream, the past. And it's Hannibal getting blood work done, and the doctor is rude to him. So he's asking Hannibal questions about his medical history, and he's like, don't lie to me. If you lie, I'll know, and I'll just fuck up your insurance premiums because of it. And at that moment, Hannibal's like, yeah, you gotta be eaten. Sorry. Rude as fuck. I agree with this, actually. I support this wrong. He should have done it twice. I hate when doctors are mean to me. Like, do you think I want to be here? No. And then flashback to the current time, because it's no longer in black and white. And we see this doctor pulling over on the side of the road. Oh no, his car is not working. Wonder how that happened. But you see in this beautiful shot, you see the headlights of a car in the background. And yeah, it's about to get fucking got. And that's why you're not rude to your patients, okay? Doctors. If I have any doctors listening, I'm sure I do. I'm sure it's just like exclusively doctors. Oh, look at that Maryland tag. I love when they get things right about my state and my city. So Hannibal is going to help this doctor with his fucked up gas tank. And he's like, do I know you? Hold up. Get got. As sweet as Mads is, he is so good at being so menacing. In this shot, it reminds me of the shot in his basement later on. I won't give any spoilers, but he is really good at just being tall and menacing. Cut to the doctor on the table, just like ripped in half. It is so fucking brutal. Just like you're thinking like the aftermath of that, like that magic trick where the magician saws his assistant in half. That's this. Just guts. Took his kidney and his heart. So Hannibal's again trying to connect the dots between the man that he didn't kill and then this one that he did. He loves to steal details from previous crime scenes and add them into new ones to fuck with the police because he's such a catty bitch. And then we're cut in between Hannibal preparing this man's heart and kidneys and then Will fighting with Zeller about whether or not it's the Ripper or not. And Hannibal's just cooking his meal, prepping his dinner. And Beverly Katz is immediately like, oh yeah, no, the Ripper definitely did this one. And she's right. Because she's always right. I love her. And they're like, is this guy just harvesting organs? Is it like your urban legend where people just like wake up with a suture? Or like, I don't know if you guys remember Charlie the Unicorn, but that happened in Charlie the Unicorn too. And I love that Jimmy Price is like, oh, I love a good urban legend. Do you think this is an urban legend? He is me. Just unserious all the time. So we're finding out that the guy in the bathtub was removing organs in a way where they could be like reattached later. But like they talk about the USB cables and keeping them intact, and he's basically not just ripping the organs out, but ripping them out with the intention of putting them back in somewhere else. And so they're like, do the Rippers victims have these things? You know, are the organs being removed so they could potentially be reattached? And Zeller says it's inconclusive, but yes, which is a crazy line to me because that means maybe not. Like inconclusive means not yes nor no. So Zeller thinks it's a big fat yes. The evidence says inconclusive maybe, which is not a yes. And it's like, oh, maybe this killer didn't mean to kill somebody and he is just trying to pin it on the Ripper so we won't come after him. Instead of like the usual, the Ripper's trying to pin it on another crime to get away with it. Reverse Uno. Will says that the Ripper likes to perform, but it's elegant. It's always elegant because Hannibal is elegant. The mutilation is only to hide the crime, where the mutilation in the tub scene was because there was a fuck up. Oh, and then we have Hannibal in his beautiful kitchen with Alana preparing for the dinner party. I love this scene because it's like, I would want to be Alana in this scene. I would want to be helping Hannibal cook and just like knowing what's really going on in the background. Not even the background, right in front of her face. Like she's drinking this beer and she's like, you made this in a barrel with cab sav, right? And he's like, oh yeah, you have a great palate. So it's noted that Alana, Dr. Bloom, has an impressive palate too and is able to distinguish. So we're not dealing with just like idiots here. He's tricking smart people. Made her this special beer with people in it. She can tell, she can taste the oak, she can taste the Cabernet, the Cab Sav. She's like, what else is in here? People. There is, and I do think there's something really interesting about Hannibal making her own private store of beer, her own reserve of beer, because it is this very kind of loving and caring and personal act, because she's like the only person that drinks beer in the show. He made it special for her, unasked, unprompted. Is there people in it? Yes. So there is this like level of control that her not knowing and watching her consume it, but it is also made with this like incredible degree of love. And I know we discussed last time that, you know, when he's strangling people, it is almost loving. He kisses the top of Miriam Lass's head, and I do think that logic applies to kind of everything he does. It is made with a love and a care, despite also being like beautiful and horrific and scary. And he's like, I love this like kind of like girl talk that they're having, because he's like, are you avoiding talking about Will Graham in front of me? And she's like, yes, in front of everybody. I hate talking about Will Graham. I wish everyone would just leave him alone. Really appreciate Alana in these beginning episodes because she is desperately trying to protect him and do what's right by him. I think it's very misguided. It is very loving and caring though, and I do respect this like desperate need to want people to leave him alone and to just let him live his little life the way that he wants. We find out that the week that Miriam last disappeared is the week that Dr. Bloom was not helping Jack. She was helping Hannibal with PhD students and picking them. And he's like, I am glad you were helping me and not Jack with the Ripper. Hilarious. I love when he says really obvious things that are like, that we know are obvious. It happens a lot. Hannibal loves putting things out in the open in ways that people might not understand the way that he is meaning it. And then he's like, why haven't we ever fucked? Plants this seed so gorgeously and subtly. And of course it works because he's hot and can cook. One mistake that Alana does make is she loves to infantilize Will, and that I think is her biggest error with him. I appreciate the attempt to protect, but it's like, he is not a baby. That is a grown-ass man. And then back to Jack walking through the halls of the morgue, almost like he did in his dream. The phone is not ringing, but he's still curious about it. So he goes over to the drawer where the phone was in his dream and goes and checks it, because everyone's starting to lose their minds and feel super crazy. And there's nothing on the slab because it was just a dream. But he is starting to feel like he is losing his mind. Turns around and there is Will. Will dead on the gurney, eyes white, arm missing. We're seeing his biggest fear realized, and we're starting to see Jack kind of unravel and lose his mind too, in a way that is similar to Will. But the message is obvious. He's scared Jack is scared that Will is gonna be the next Miriam. So again, he is operating on fear, which does not make him make good decisions. The music this episode is really good. We see Hannibal preparing for his dinner party. Operatic music playing in the background. It's really fast paced. It's very high stakes. We see him picking out recipes. We see him picking out business cards of people he's going to kill. And then we see him taking them apart, prepping them, putting them in his fridge. I think it's interesting that we see the names of these people that are dying. We don't see their faces. It's very dehumanizing. We just see their organs and him prepping them. It's a great stylistic choice. Him being in and out of the fridge. Let this be a friendly reminder to just be polite to everyone you see that you don't know. Otherwise, you could end up in some guy's fridge being prepped for a dinner party. And then smash cut to the morgue where we see all of his victims lined up. It's just shot so beautifully, again, because Hannibal does not see them as people. So we don't see their faces until they're in the morgue with Will, who does see them as people. We find out hearts, kidneys, stomach, livers, pancreas, lungs, all edible things. So they think initially that it is organ harvesting, but of course it's the Ripper, right? Piggybacking on these crimes, his favorite pastime. And Zeller is like, either we're looking for somebody with really short intestines or the Ripper's making sausage. Ha 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 ha. He would never do that. Okay. Zeller should be fired. Fired for sleeping with the press. And then this, please. Fired. So they're still thinking that it's organ donor. And Will is thinking in the background while Zeller and Price make jokes. Hilarious. And Will says, there are two killers. One is the Ripper and one is not. Hannibal really piled on those bodies so fucking fast because a feast has to present itself, like he said. Baltimore's got a crazy amount of serial killers, actually. And then back to Franklin. They are closer in the seats, I think, but Franklin is still leaning forward, still eager, and Hannibal is still laid back, nonchalant. I love this Hannibal suit, this blue suit. I love a blue suit. One, love that tyromancy is mentioned. I know of tyromancy from Skyrim, obviously. I do love that Franklin's like, that's how I discovered cheese. Through tyromancy and not just like eating cheese out of your fridge like a normal person. His gateway to cheese. What a weirdo. I love that Hannibal's like, do you want to fuck Tobias? It's giving rejection, Hannibal. It's giving projection. You want to fuck Will? You want to fuck Will? And then Franklin's like, no, but I was in a fraternity. I've tried stuff. Franklin sucked a dick. Franklin sucked a dick for sure. It's not his brand. These stupid fucking men. Hannibal does a lot of projecting through Franklin, I think. He's struggling with the concept of friends, and like Bedelia really shut his ass down with that, and he's still definitely hurting from it. And he kind of uses Franklin as a sounding board for that. What an awful psychiatrist. And then he opens the door, expecting Will, only to find an empty lobby, which just kind of, I imagine, makes him more nervous because he's like, oh, you see the sadness in his eyes. Yeah, hurt. The hurt is there. It is always there. And this music, it's literally Lacrimosa, I think, by Mozart. Will missed his appointment and he's being so dramatic about it. I have no words. He's just like sitting at his desk being like really depressed. And then he opens his calendar and you see, oh, it was supposed to be Will's appointment. How could he miss it? And he gets up. Oh, he leaves. He's like, I gotta go find this man because he would never do that to me. He's right though. And then we get this shot of Will's and Abigail kind of sitting across a table, but it's just the first victim with the antlers in her that they found, that they did in the first episode when it was Garrett Jacob Hobbs. It was the victim that Hannibal kind of piggybacked on. And Abigail refers to Will as dad, and he says, yes, therapy is not helping any of these people. And we find out Will is having a hallucination in his little fishbowl office or classroom at the FBI. Hannibal literally drove to Virginia, to Quantico. Okay, I know we always talk about like Will driving from Wolf Trap to Hannibal's office, but like Baltimore to Quantico is not short either. Drove his ass all the way there to be like, why did you miss my appointment? That is wild. That is wild. And Will is like slowly just starting to continue to lose his mind. He's like, was I sleepwalking? Was I awake? Was I asleep? And it was like, your eyes were open. And we find out he hasn't really been sleeping because he's been avoiding his dreams. Will asks Hannibal, give me your summary of the Ripper. Hannibal's like, displaying your enemies after death is, revered in cultures. And Will's like, no. These are not the Ripper's enemies. He doesn't see them as equals. Nice try. The dissections are to disgrace them. It's not about cruelty. It's about shame and embarrassment, which is important because Hannibal is not opposed to cruelty, but he doesn't like things that are not dignified. He takes their organs away because in his mind, they don't deserve them. It's a nice moment for Hannibal to kind of reveal something without revealing anything. And then he pulls out the photo of the arm of Miriam Lass. And Hannibal's acting like he's seeing it for the first time. And Will's like, this one is different because he wasn't trying to humiliate the victim. He's trying to humiliate Jack. And Hannibal asks, did it work? Did it work? And then Will has to be like, yeah, super well. Worked great. And then you can kind of see Hannibal's face. He's like, fuck yes. So then we cut to Jack and Beverly in Jack's office. And it appears that Beverly has discovered the kill truck. It's a private ambulance that's driving away from the scene because she is always paying attention. She is that girl. Even Jack's like, who cares? It's an ambulance at a crime scene. And she's like, pay attention. It's driving away. Genius. And that goes back to the thought that it was happening in a car. There are lots of like private ambulance companies that have the equipment not to perform full surgery, but to handle emergencies. So, and they can be refrigerated and have electricity. And so, yeah, no, he wasn't just operating in a car, he's operating in an ambulance, which makes sense. And the first thing Jack says is, where is willgraham? He needs to like figure it out without him. And then Beverly and Jack go to Will, who is with Hannibal, and they're like, do you want to help us catch the Ripper? And Hannibal's like, how could I possibly refuse? The look on his face, like he is just doing everything for the plot. He is such a menace. Hannibal is feeling a lot of emotions in this episode. Then they go to where the ambulance is being stored. They find out that one is missing and a man is missing, and they're like, ding, 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 found our killer. Because Beverly is that girl. They're at the ambulance place, and Beverly's like, oh, I can hack into this ambulance because they don't have like heavy duty security system. And Hannibal turns to Will and he's like, this is very educational. He's so dramatic and funny, and also learning shit about the ambulances and just like always gathering information. And then they pull up, they find the ambulance, they track it. The music here is so dramatic. It's giving like we're approaching Count Dracula's castle, like old horror style film. The FBI is pulling up with all these guns. It's just building suspense in a way that is just delicious. Hannibal and Will are hanging behind as the FBI goes after this guy. It's crazy who they just let hang out at these crime scenes. Like, why is Beverly there with a gun? Isn't she a scientist? I don't understand. Why does Jack have a shotgun? Who is giving the FBI shotguns? That can't be the most effective gun. And then we get one of my favorite scenes in the whole series. So we open the ambulance and there's a guy performing surgery. His hands are in the patient. And they're like, hands up. And he is like, no, I can't because I'll kill this guy. And then Jack's like, Dr. Lecter, get your ass over here. Because Jack is always yelling at the funniest moments. And Will and Hannibal look at each other. And then Hannibal gets his ass in that ambulance and starts performing surgery. You take that suit jacket right off, baby. He's removing his kidney poorly. He's such a hater. He's such a fucking hater. The minute he removes that suit jacket, Will is standing there like a fucking toddler, but it's like he is having this like come to Jesus moment about Hannibal and how impressive he is and how he can take life away and save it. Because in this moment we see Hannibal saving a life, which is not something we often see. Will is so funny in this moment. Like, he is having a moment about Hannibal, and he just like, he could not have a dumber look on his face. And then there's this like, and as they're pulling this man out of the elevator, there's this like dramatic, like spiritual kind of, it's giving like Catholic Church to me. Will watching Hannibal work on this man's body, and like Hannibal makes eye contact with him for a moment. This is such an important moment in their relationship. He is just taken aback by it. And then cut to Hannibal back to his dinner party. He's unfazed. He like saved a man, solved this crime, and is just back to chopping up his organs and prepping them like really deliciously. And you see he has like a staff on site like helping him prep for his dinner party, and they're just like prepping all these human organs, and they don't even know it. I want to say that this minute with the cow's blood, it's like obviously people blood, but Hannibal's like, oh, I have a butcher that drains the cow's blood and he centrifugates it, right? Which means he spins it around and separates the plasma from the blood. I know this because I used to work at a med spa and we did the same thing for vampire facials. The plasma is referred to as liquid gold, and it's got healthy properties, right? It's rejuvenating. People use it for hair loss. You'll see it in like ED treatments. Like the blood plasma it's rich in nutrients and it's just like magic. So Hannibal, knowing this, being a doctor, separating the cow's blood and giving plasma to people is so interesting. And Will's there holding this bottle of wine like a big old dork. And he's like, please stay for dinner. And Hannibal's like, before you leave, please tell me what happened to that guy. Did I save him or did I kill him? And he saved him. And Hannibal's kind of shocked by that. And it's like, again, the first time we're seeing him save a life instead of take a life. And he lies. And he's like, that's the first time I used a scalpel in a long time other than sharpening a pencil. I fucking hate these people. And Will asks, why did you stop being a surgeon? This is a great Hannibal line. It happens right at the end of the episode. He's like, I killed somebody. That's why I stopped. Well, someone died on my table. But it's just another instance of Hannibal like saying the truth out loud, but in a way that is not going to reveal himself as the Ripper. It's just a way to him to kind of like get it out in everybody's face, but also say it out loud and not keep it in. And he says, I transferred my passion for anatomy into the culinary arts. Again, not a lie. It's not a lie. He's being obvious. He's being truthful to Will, but it's like a double entendre, double meaning type of thing. So he can't have the finger pointed at him. And then Will's like, I have to go. I have a date with the Chesapeake Ripper. Oh, there's such good dialogue in this last bit. Oh, you do? You have a date with the Ripper? You mean Hannibal? I can't. Leaving a date with Hannibal to go on a date with Hannibal. And you find out that he's having this whole conversation in front of like a kitchen staff full of people that he doesn't know. Hilarious. And then cut to the episode of it's a shot of Jack from the back, and he's looking at all of the Ripper's victims, and it's zooming in, and it's kind of like your classic cop, like the murderer got the best of me moment. And it hurts. I think it hurts. We end the episode with Hannibal having a dinner party, and we have this top panning shot over his incredibly long table with all of these beautiful dishes just to emphasize the fact he killed so many people. This shot is never ending. He killed so many people. And people are cheering, they're clapping, and you see the opera singers there. Before we begin, you must all be warned, nothing here is vegetarian. It's just such a good line. And everyone's giggling in the background. Ha 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 ha, nothing here is vegetarian. Ah. Bitch, it's cannibalism. And the episode ends. The episode ends with Hannibal just again being in everybody's face, being like, yeah, I'm the murderer, and I'm saying it directly to your face, to all of you. You're just not picking up the clues. You're not picking up the clues. And the episode concludes, and it's really good. While I am sad that we move away from the Gideon stuff that comes back later, this was a very fun episode, a very Hannibal-centric episode. You know, we've gotten Will, we've gotten Jack. Hannibal is the star of the show of this episode, in my opinion. We see him go through so many emotions, a lot of sadness, a lot of hurt. He's struggling with the concept of friends. I don't think that is a coincidence that he is now throwing a dinner party and being like, I have friends in this room. We see his relationship with Bedelia, and we see him kind of projecting onto Franklin. I think this is a really good episode to distinguish the fact that he is not a traditional psychopath. He feels these emotions really strongly. So that concludes season 1, episode 7, Sorbet. Next month, we'll dive into episode 8, where we get a little bit more of Tobias, which I'm really actually excited to dive into because he has a lot of similarities to Hannibal, and I'm excited to do that. Before you go, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my platforms, TikTok, Blue Sky, YouTube, Instagram, Quantifiably Bitchy without that I in bitchy. My link tree is in my bio. You can find it all there. Other than that, I will see you guys in a month. I hope you have the best Halloween, and I will see you next time. Bye.